We are your home theater and AV questions answered. This is AVRant. Want your home theater or AV question answered by Tom and Rob? Send it to question@avrant.com. Welcome to AVRant. I'm Tom Andry, and I'm here with
Rob H.
Nathan. So Nathan's parents need a new AV receiver, and they also want sound for the patio outside. Nathan was thinking that a wireless speaker would be best for the patio, and he was leaning towards some Marantz SR7011 for the receiver, and so that got them thinking about HEOS. He was pretty clear on being able to use HEOS smartphone app to send audio to the wireless HEOS speaker or to the Marantz receiver, but where he's a little unclear is whether they can easily send sound from, say, their cable box, which would be plugged in via HDMI, to the into the Marantz receiver, and from that to the wireless speaker outside. So can we help clear up this confusion for him? I was just getting into this question when we started the podcast, so I did not know, but my feeling is that anything that's connected shouldn't anything be connected digitally have no problems going to a HEOS speaker like this?
So it's a little bit tricky with HEOS because HEOS is, for all intents and purposes, stereo only. There's some minor exceptions to that, but the easiest way to think of it is stereo only. And in the case of a HEOS-capable AV receiver, like the Marantz SR7011, whatever its capabilities are for Zone 2, those are essentially its capabilities for HEOS.
Oh, okay.
So, for example, in the lower model ranges, you can only send an analog stereo connection to Zone 2, and that is also the case for HEOS. In the upper range, like the SR7011 is basically the flagship in Marantz's current receiver line, it can send an HDMI connection, an optical audio, a coax audio, or an analog stereo connection, but stereo only.
And it won't downmix it for you?
Well, that's where, if you are only playing one source out of one HEOS device, then it can downmix. But as soon as you want to play it out of more than one device, it has to be a stereo-only signal to originally. So that's the kind of weird exception. But in my opinion, it's like, well, that's not worth even futzing. Like, just stereo-only, that way it works, right? That's the easier way to think of it in my mind. So to answer the first question directly, yes, you can play, like, let's say your cable box is plugged into your Marantz receiver. You can, what you would do is you go into the HEOS app, you select the HEOS speaker that you want to use. So let's say they're using the HEOS 1 because that's the water-resistant one that can even have an optional battery attached to it, be very easy to take outside. And you can use two HEOS 1s as a stereo pair. Very easy to set up. So that's a great option for going outside. But you would first select those HEOS 1 speakers as where you want the sound to come from. Then you go to the next tab, which you choose where you want the sound to come from, like the source of the sound. So there, you would go to the Inputs tab, and then you would select the Marantz receiver, and then you would select the cable box input. And now the cable box sound will be coming out of your HEOS 1 speakers. But if you want the sound to come out of your HEOS 1 speakers and the Marantz receiver, like you want to be able to walk in and out of the house and have the sound inside at the TV and outside as well, then it has to be a stereo signal coming from your cable box. So an easy workaround is you have HDMI connected when you want to just watch TV and watch it in full surround sound, and then use a separate input, like say the tape input, with just the analog stereo connection coming from your cable box into the Marantz, and that's the input you select when you want to watch both at the same time.
Isn't there a delay? Like if you're watching in two sources, like inside, like from the Marantz and from the speaker someplace, there's some
outside
sort of like
speakers,
a delay.
yes.
Yeah, okay.
So by default,
it's 1.5 seconds.
Yeah, it's 1.5 seconds. Yeah, by default, it's 1.5 seconds, but there is a setting you can go into the HEOS app again, and they actually have a thing for TV sound, and that lets you set the latency as low as 40 milliseconds. It's essentially a buffer. That's what it is. If you set it that low, you basically have no buffer, so they warn you if your network connection between all the devices in this little HEOS setup is not rock solid, then you're going to get problems because there's no buffer. right? By default, they give you a 1.5-second buffer. You can lower that to anywhere between 250 milliseconds down all the way down to 40 milliseconds. But now it's just a straight stream with no buffer. So if you don't have a perfect network connection, you could get stutters. But that's not
the TV
too bad.
room and the outside is far enough away where you're not going to notice. You're not going to hear them both at the same time. Or if maybe they're
well, 1.5 seconds is significant though. So
I know, but I mean, I've been in situations like my parents' house up in North Carolina before they moved down here. Like their theater room was upstairs in like a bonus room, and you had to walk all the way downstairs and outside in order to hear the outside.
Right. So by the time you walk there, you'd have no idea.
No idea whatsoever, and no one ever listened to the same thing up in the home theater that they were listening to outside anyways.
Right.
So it was never really an issue, but even if it had been. So this is just good information for you, so you can use that to make your decision.
Now, for Nathan and everybody else, I did just want to mention, in a situation like this is where, personally, I prefer Yamaha's MusicCast system. Because the cool thing about MusicCast is you can have full surround, you can have Atmos playing in your home theater, and then play that same source, your Ultra HD Blu-ray player, out of any MusicCast speaker. It will down mix to stereo while continuing to play full surround sound in the main zone. So MusicCast has that capability. That's cool. I like that it has that.
What's the flagship Yamaha price comparison to this one?
Right. So the flagship Yamaha right now would be the A3070. That's $2,000. So I think the retail price on the SR711 is higher, but you can get it accessories for less. So I'll have to look that up. But yeah, just if you're open to it, I do actually like Yamaha a bit better for the MusicCast system, but there's a fairly easy workaround with HEOS. So
Yamaha really has to start putting their better room correction stuff in lower end models so we can start recommending them more. Yeah. That's the only problem I have with Yamaha right now. I do like the MusicCast as well. It sounds like a much better solution than HEOS. Denon is definitely behind on this technology.
HEOS really isn't bad. It's just if as long as you stick to stereo only for anything that's going to be HEOS.
Well, there you go. See, that's my problem right there. As long as you do this one thing, then it's great. Well, the problem is you are making me have to do this one thing that I don't want to have to do. I don't want to have to do any of that. That's the whole point of this, is supposed to be convenience. And Yamaha is doing it, so why am I going with your system? Well, we have Odyssey. All right. That's why I'm going with your system. But that's why I'm saying Yamaha needs to come down with this RSC with, the wide-powered RSC and all this stuff. They've got to come down with that so that they can be more competitive with Denon and Marantz. Because once they
SR711's retail price is the same as Yamaha's, so they're very comparable price-wise.
Right. Okay. Want your question answered? Send it to question@avrant.com. This is AV Rant.
Now go out and listen to something.